What's in the box?
Hello, welcome to episode 8 of What's in the Box.
Evening.
Evening.
How are
and
we?
I'm back.
You,
I'm good.
You are after your curious case of the disappearing Daniel from last week.
I know. I was so disappointed I couldn't discuss Benjamin and his button.
Oh, yeah. And Benjamin did miss you.
Oh, did he now?
He did, yes, yeah.
When he was old or young, Benjamin?
Well, I got confused when I was watching it, so I'm not quite sure. But I was just worried about some of the inappropriate relationships that were going on in that film, if you do the maths, yeah. We are here tonight to discuss...
The Social Network.
The Social Network. We are indeed. So, good evening. I am the world's most popular social platform. I am Facebook. Opposite me is MySpace. That's all I can say.
Why? Why are you the way that you are?
I don't know, genetics, drugs.
A little bit of both.
A bit of both, yeah. So, Social Network is David Fincher's 2010 film. I think we'd best say loosely based on the creation of Facebook, with Mark Zuckerberg being the main protagonist. This is a piece which is written by Aaron Sorkin, possibly more well known for The Newsroom, The West Wing, programs like that. And it is possibly one of the first criticisms of the film is that Aaron Sorkin's writing is you like it or you don't. I think it works here. I think that the script and the dialogue is fairly solid. One thing I wanted to point out before we start this is that I think, until we get to the next film, where I will change my mind again, that this is Trent Reznor's and Atticus Ross's finest work for Mr. Fincher in this film.
Oh, controversial.
Until we get to the next film.
Yeah.
And then I'll change my mind. But we're working in chronological order. Up until this point, I think it's their best work.
I think it's you've hit it early, but the music on this film is utterly fantastic.
Oh,
and the first outing for the three of them together.
Yeah.
But I think it's faultless. There are thematics in there that are just brilliant.
Yeah.
And standalone pieces of music, and what a pairing, and a pairing that goes on to do some other great things.
Oh, it's fantastic because the music alone, because the directing is quite static in the scene where Zuckerberg is actually coding what will eventually become Facebook, and coding isn't exactly sexy or exciting unless you're a coder. But there's that almost like a techno track that sits underneath it, and that really heightens the interest in that scene.
Well, again, it's Fincher putting music as a character.
Most definitely. And in certain parts of the film, the most interesting character, as in, know, you can watch somebody going tippity-tap, coding. You could watch that and it wouldn't mean anything to you. You're laughing at tippity-tap, typing. But that's how spiders type. Tippity-tap.
You sound like a train. Tippity-tap, 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 tippity-tap.
I don't know what trains sound like down in the south, mate, where they've got light loafers, but up in the north, trains thunder along in a very manly fashion. They certainly don't go tippity-tap, tippity-tap.
Tippity-tap, tippity-tap.
That would be a really bad Liam Gallagher impression.
Tippity-tap.
The train's coming on the sunshine. So the film starts off with a scene where Zuckerberg's trying to impress his, I think, girlfriend is mostly a bit of a stretch, but he's squeeze, and it's Kate O'Mara, who comes up with what is one of the greatest lines of the whole film, because you get this back and forth where you can see how socially awkward Zuckerberg is, that he doesn't take, that he can't fathom human cues as maybe
it's a slight autistic trait.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. But it's where, and I'll paraphrase, but Kate O'Mara says to him, you'll go through life and you'll be single, and and people will think that's because you're a computer nerd, or you'll think it's because you're a computer nerd, and it's not. You're really just an asshole. And I just thought that just summed up the way Zuckerberg was at that time.
But that's Sorkin.
Yeah,
That's his writing is very much like that. He does great zingers and great great little not pitter patter. What is it? When they back
we're back to the trains.
Yeah, we're back to the trains.
Yeah. Welcome to Mondo Street does OO gauge train stations. Thank you, Daniel, for morphing the show away from cinema and light entertainment to, oh, look, there goes the Flying Scotsman. Thank you.
Look, it's a new demographic that's untapped in the podcast arena. So,
I'm sure there's a train podcast out there.
I'm sure there is. But anyway, we're not talking about trains. We're talking about the Social Network.
We are. So, what did you think of the casting then? So,
yeah,
because for me, Kate, it's not Kate O'Mara, it's Rooney Mara's sister. I do apologise. Rooney Mara, as we see in the next Fincher film, which is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, phenomenal actress. And as I said with Benjamin Button, I think she would have been better in the role of Daisy than Kate Blanchett.
I'd agree with you. Yeah.
It was too early in her career. But it was Jesse Eisenberg. I didn't see, when I look at Jesse Eisenberg, I didn't see Mark Zuckerberg. And I'm not sure whether I see Mark Zuckerberg at the end of the film or I still see Jesse Eisenberg.
Do you know what? It's funny you say that, because I think it was a great piece of casting.
Yeah.
Because there was a period when and internet memes are going around about it, that you couldn't tell the difference between him and Zuckerberg.
Right.
They sort of morphed into one entity.
Yeah.
Which I think is a testament to the film as well. That it was so believable.
Yeah.
And his acting in that was so believable. But I think he played that really well. I can't remember if Zombieland was around the same time. I think it was, wasn't it? Or just after?
It must have been a couple of years after, I think.
Yeah, because when I watched that, I just thought it's Zuckerberg with zombies.
Yeah, because there's that long list of rules, doesn't he? And you can just imagine Zuckerberg having a long list of rules. I thought Andrew Garfield was really well cast. He does a really good performance. Justin Timberlake, less so. He just.
I think that's a billing to get certain bums on seats.
A bit like with Benjamin Button. We're going for the Oscars here, so let's load Oscar actors in the way. I don't think we can go much further along the cast without mentioning the Winklevoss twins, the Army Hammer.
The Winklevi.
Yeah, the Winklevi. We won't be dwelling on Mr. Hammer, just in case somebody mentions his nocturnal activities. But I think one thing to note here is that Fincher has taken the digital technology that was used in Benjamin Button and just pushed it light years ahead, so that when we get to the Winklevi or Army Hammer times 2, you can imagine 2 of them. Jesus Christ, nobody'd be safe.
Army Hammer time.
Yeah. Oh God. I bet he put that in a text somewhere, didn't he? It's Hammer time.
You can't touch this.
Yeah, and nobody would want to. I think that he'd actually pushed those special effects so far forward that you couldn't. There were maybe a couple of scenes that I think there's one where Zuckerberg is walking into the Winklevoss's building for the first time. And I think there's one shot where the twin doesn't look quite right. But apart from that, it's stellar special effects.
It really is, because I didn't realise it was one.
Yeah, neither did I when I first
one actor.
Yeah.
When I first, because I didn't know anything about Hammer Time before that. But lift your head out of your hands. So I genuinely thought it was twins. It's that good. So
Basil.
again, he's pushed the envelope. Did you go Basil?
Yeah, well, you said it's twins, and I went Basil because we've got a couple of episodes now without an Austin Powers reference. So we normally throw one in.
It's twins, Basil.
Basil, and that's what she said. So overall, I was really happy with the casting. I think the the directing by Fincher. There's one scene where he uses a forced perspective, like the toy camera, and it's when they're going towards the boat race. I love that shot. I don't know why.
Well, it has that tilt shift, doesn't it?
Tilt
on it
shift,
as
that's
well.
what it's called. But it's called
tilt shift.
toy camera tilt shift.
Yeah, it has that tilt shift effect, and I thought that was brilliant. And the use of that, what's the classical piece? And Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross have sort of.
It's Bruce Forsyth. Nice to see you. It's hammer time.
In the court of the, I forget what it's called, but it's a storming piece of music anyway. But Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross give it this slow build to this industrial sound at full pelt. Absolutely. It's so aggressive. It's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I'm going to jump in over the on the music again. I think one of the things that one of my favorite songs of all time is in there, and it's California Ruberalis by the Dead Kennedys. Makes a very, very brief appearance in there. And the use of Ball and Biscuit by Jack White, or the White Stripes rather. Fantastic. I just think the soundtrack is fantastic. I really do. And I've said fantastic twice in one sentence there. Do apologize.
That's fantastic.
That's great. So yeah, I approached this film with a little bit of trepidation because I wasn't quite sure. Hang on a tick, your corpse in again. What did I say?
It's great.
It's great.
Yeah, no.
It's great, Grandma. Thank you.
No. I want that one.
I wasn't sure. You know, when I went to rewatch Benjamin Button, I really wasn't looking forward to it. And I think I saw, if you haven't listened to last week's episode yet, traitor, then you should go and listen to last week's episode, because not only to help the listening figures, but also to understand, you know, that I saw a few things and interpreted a few things slightly differently. Did I enjoy the film anymore because of that? No, it's too long. It's way too long, and it's too dependent on special effects. It didn't quite work.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah. Don't get me started.
Yeah. But I approached this. Well, no, I was a little bit not too sure how I would enjoy it, because last time I'd seen it, I didn't enjoy it that much. But I enjoyed it a lot more this time, and I think it's a shorter film, which always helps. And I think that the cast being generally very, very good, just keeps it flowing along quite itenically.
I'd agree with you. I did enjoy it the first time I watched it. I've enjoyed it the second time, and I've enjoyed it again.
Yeah.
I just think it's an interesting one because it's like the film acts as a bookmark in history for us, because you know, you joke about me being MySpace at the start of this, but MySpace was the social network before this.
Yeah.
And then along came Facebook and blew everything apart.
Yeah.
And I think we were so keen by that point to know how this thing started, to know the runaway success, to know the pain points behind it, because you'd heard Chinese whispers or what have you about Zuckerberg and the whole how they got to this point, and the dating part of it, and the Winkelweil. And to see it dramatized, and to remember it is a dramatization, because a lot of people went into that and went, oh, that must have really happened. No, it's a dramatization. You know, Andrew Garfield's character, when he comes across and has that full-blown go at Zuckerberg, who's just sat at the back of his chair. Fantastic. That to me is one of the key bits of the film. It's brilliantly done.
Yeah.
But it's a dramatization. It's a very good one, but it's a great dramatization because it's got a great script. Yeah. It's written by someone who writes well for that type of film, for that type of narrative. And it sort of looking back on Fincher, going back to Zodiac, for example, he's been given something that is linear, that is fact again. But he's made it interesting because it's got a great script, it's got a great cast, it's brilliantly directed, the score is amazing. But it hit the zeitgeist. I think, in the nut.
I think one of the big differences between Zodiac and the Social Network, both being works of, based on fact, is that the decision was made to stick completely to fact within Zodiac. That if if there were no survivors of an attack, then the attack would be omitted from the film. It'd be mentioned, but it wouldn't be shown. And this is a dramatization because so many of the conversations, the only people that witnessed them were Zuckerberg and Eduardo, or Zuckerberg and Hammer Time. So it's
You've
interesting.
got artistic license.
You've got a lot of artistic license. The only thing that when I was watching this film that kind of bothered me a little bit was knowing what Facebook has become. And you watch the very start of it, and in a drunken rage, he thinks it's quite funny to pitch women's physical appearance against each other, which is a pretty shitty thing to do.
Even at the time, it was a shitty thing to do.
Yeah. But Facebook has now become so much more than that, and some would argue more immoral than that, and in more bad taste, because some of the decisions that Facebook make on how they push information out to people and what information they push out is a touch shady.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I full disclosure, I work in that arena anyway. Through marketing, I've worked within the Facebook ecosystem since around that time, probably before. So I know the back end of it quite well, not from a coding perspective or anything, but how it's utilized data for marketing purposes, etc. I have to know that. I know it quite well. I still use the platform, but I know too much of what goes on in the background. And I think since that film came out with the Cambridge Analytica scandal, more people are very wary of the platform. And rightly so. But if you skip forward from that film to now, Facebook is a platform that's utilized by people that were in their 20s at that point, 30s at that point. They utilize it now. It's a dying platform. Younger generations aren't using it. There are new ones out there.
Yeah.
I think Facebook paved the way for them.
Yeah.
And I think Facebook is now in catch-up mode. Yeah, I think seeing Social Network as the film is a great, like I was saying earlier, it was a great bookmark.
Yeah.
For where things were at that point. If that film were to be made of Facebook now, the Social Network 2, this time it's Meta.
This time we're collecting cookies.
Yeah. This time it's your data or your life.
Bring me your data.
It's I just don't think it would find an audience. It'd be boring if they made that. If they made the Social Network, but it was about TikTok, jeez, that'd be boring as heck.
Yeah, because they did. When you think about it, they stopped the film right at the right time, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because if you go any further into the story, then it just becomes this mass explosion, which shows them consuming, other resources, other companies, other platforms, destroying places, and it turns it quite a negative story quite quickly. Yeah.
You want to see the rise. You want to see how a social network like Facebook got to where it was so quickly. I mean, it was quick, but I think if a film about social media or social networks would be to be made now, I think what it would be is when all the heads of tech companies were brought up in front of Congress, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And Mark Zuckerberg was there, and all the memes went out with him looking like Data from Star Trek. Yeah. I think that is probably the story of now, and that would be an interesting story if they were to follow it up and get Sorkin to get his quill out and write it again.
Get his quill out. I was wondering when I was watching it whether Sean Parker, as portrayed by Justin Timberlake, was really such a big sleaze and a slug, because he just comes across as a thoroughly unpleasant person.
He does. He really does.
He is single-handedly responsible for the breakdown in that relationship. between Zuckerberg and Eduardo. You wonder what Facebook would have been without that influence.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good point.
whether there would have been more of a conscience, because Zuckerberg comes across as somebody that doesn't have a conscience, because maybe that there is some,
Doesn't understand one.
yeah, maybe there's some, I don't know what the right word is, but maybe there's some narcissistic elements in there. Maybe there must be some narcissistic, because you can't do that. Maybe there's elements of him being on the spectrum. I don't know, but somebody had to be there to read the cues, the body language, the tone, and the marketplace. And you just think, would Facebook be as big as it is now if Parker hadn't gotten involved? And I think the answer is no. But would it have had far better ethics if Eduardo had stayed involved? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I think you've hit nail on the head with that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good observation of it and how it would impact.
And in turn, then how would that have impacted on social media en masse? Because you look at Twitter. Yeah, Twitter is just I'm going to call it Twitter because
call it Twitter because that's what it is.
That's what it is. Yeah, because you still send a tweet, you don't send an X, do you?
No,
which is just stupid. Twitter was the
maybe that's what that song was. Shout out to my ex.
So anyway, thanks for tuning in.
I can hear the crickets. I can hear the crickets.
Oh my god! Because X became the cesspit of social platforms, didn't it? It was all bots, hatred, negativity.
Oh, it's the town square.
Yeah, and it attracts a lot of the town loonies to stand there.
But fulfilled by the town idiots, yeah.
Yeah, but you wonder how if social media had, if Facebook had a soul and a conscience as it grew, what effect would that have had on social media? Because they saw that Facebook did what they did to get to the size that they did. So everyone else is like, well, it's free for all, isn't it? There ain't no rules. Let's go for it.
Yeah, there was an element of the Wild West. I'm trying to go back through my historical data banks in my brain, but it did feel a little bit like the Wild West at the time because it was, let's see how far we could push it to get away with it till we're found out.
Yeah.
Hence Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah.
It was finally found out that these things were happening. And unfortunately, if the technology is out there, it will be seized by rogue agents. So if you look at
of course.
We've got elections happening around the world this year, and they're already trying to shut. What are you giggling about?
Sorry, I haven't had an election for a while. That's what she said. I'm sorry, I'm infantile.
Well, there are a lot of elections around the world this year.
Lucky people.
A lot.
Lucky people.
And it's already, Facebook are dialing down on it. They're going to stop advertising with this, but you can't stop a rogue agent like certain countries in east of this country.
If the barn door's open, the horse is going through it, and you can't bring you can't put water back in.
Technology is there. Technology will be used for good or bad, no matter what. And I don't think you can stop that fully.
Yeah.
And there are measures in place. I don't think. Yeah, I don't know if what you're saying is right.
Yeah. It's just a talking point because I thought as well that if the social media platforms themselves had developed with a bit more of a conscience, possibly society wouldn't be where it is today, where everyone is me.
Are you saying that social networks, basically the Tin Man and the lion, don't have heart?
No, I think the social network is a depiction, quite innocently, of a massive shift in society. I think it's
also an echo chamber of what society is at that point. We're completely deviating away from the film here.
Yeah, but if you take that echo chamber of what society was at the point, and we're not going away from the film actually, because the important thing about the film is that it allows you to see what was there at that time.
Yeah.
Society wasn't as fucked up as it is now when
No.
Facebook developed.
I don't think Facebook is responsible for that. I think
No.
Twitter is responsible for that.
Yeah, but the argument is if Facebook had grown with more of a conscience as opposed to this Zuckerberg at the helm and Sean Parker egging him on, if social media had grown to be a better adult, a more considerate adult, then the others would have followed, and society may well have been, given an opportunity to embrace it. I'm mostly trying being very naive about that because, like you've said, rogue agents, people with bad intent will always abuse things, but there has to be a point where you can see it's abusable.
Yeah, and I unfortunately think that there are measures in place. There are a lot of measures in place now. You can't do things that you used to be able to do then now within the platform. I know that for sure. Unfortunately, it's deviated. So something for good. So take Facebook Marketplace as an example.
Yeah.
Set for good. The intentions are good.
Yeah.
What you can't get away from is that there are dickheads out there who will abuse it and try and scam. They're given a platform to do that on. You can't fully regulate that. It's unfortunate it happens, and there are more and more stories of it happening with financial impacts on very innocent people.
Yeah.
I see it day in, day out on accounts that I look after of spam ones. Your account's going to be deleted and your page isn't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are rogue agents out there who will just utilize something that is set up for good and that you cannot, no matter what measures you put in place or technology you put in place to buffer that, you can't get around it.
No.
It's not just Facebook. It's every single platform. But unfortunately, with something like Twitter/X, what Elon Musk has done is he's also become a mouthpiece for it, to humanize it, to say you can do whatever you want. Oh, we're going to get Trump back on because I don't believe anyone should have their free speech, blah, blah, blah. He's basically taking it back to what you're describing in the social network. He's basically giving a new mouthpiece for the bad side to come through and validating it.
And Trump doesn't need another mouthpiece, does he?
No, he's got his own social network, which is absolutely failing. The numbers are atrocious.
Yeah.
But to get into slightly off piste is that is built for financial implications because he's building it up to float it.
Yeah.
Loads of people that support him are investing in it. He's going to burst that bubble and take all their money. That's the only reason it exists.
Well, he's floated it. And
shocker.
And the stocks crashed today because the financial results were given out for the year, which shows $58 million losses, but he can't take any money out of that flotation for 6 months. So he's kind of foobarred. So good.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. There's a lovely line.
It's the best social network. It's even better than Facebook.
Beautiful dogs.
It's the best thing. It's the best thing I ever made. I made the world in 6 days. Yep, but we're moving on. Breasts are the best thing I ever made. Breasts are amazing. They're the best thing ever. Absolutely wonderful. I love breasts.
So during a conversation in the film, as a reference to the famous actor on campus, it turns out to be Natalie Portman.
Yes.
She graduated the same year as Zuckerberg.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I thought was quite good, but she's since gone back to uni. I think she's on a 3rd degree or something. Very, very bright.
Yeah, isn't it a doctor? Well, whatever. Yeah, she went back to university. She's kind of pushed Hollywood away. I think ever since she did the Thor movie.
Yeah. Let's not cover Marvel films. I'll have a bloody heart attack. Yeah. So overall, then, we're happy with the structure, the script, the cast, the soundtrack. Was there anything in the film that really kind of like jumped out and you said, "Oh God, that's crap"? That
I don't think so. I really liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was.
I really liked it. Again, I think it's one of those films that's not. We've talked about the sort of first arc of Fincher up
Yeah.
until the sort of Zodiac,
Mm.
so to speak. But I think he's doing standalone films now, and I think they're all standalone films, but more so.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a great piece of cinema, and that's what matters. It's not. It shouldn't be about who the director is, who this, that, or the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
It's a great piece of cinema. It's a great ensemble piece,
Mm.
but Fincher is key to that because he's the helmsman.
Yeah, and I think going back to going back to one of my points that I make week on, week out, could somebody else have directed this film? And I think the answer is yes.
Do you know what? I'm not so sure on that. Stylistically, I don't think it would have been the same. I don't think someone would have got out of the actors what they did. Definitely not the music, and put the music there as a character in itself. But who else would you see directing this? Who would be your sort of?
Well, I think if Hollywood had got hold of this,
B-lister.
it would have been a Ridley Scott film.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, because it's got that gravitas around it. Fincher didn't dumb the gravitas down. I'm not saying that's what Fincher's done, but Fincher's identified that it's a moment in pop culture. Yeah, and it starts here and finishes there. Yeah, and we get a tiny little bit in the credits. We get a little bit, but if Hollywood had really wanted to stamp this, they would have given it to Ridley Scott, and it would have gone well past where this film ended. And there would have been histrionics and banging of desks. It would have gone to the Congress part where they're debating, the value of social media allowing total free speech. And it would have finished with a shot of the American flag fluttering in the sky as it, upheld the First Amendment. I could have seen Ridley Scott doing this film. Completely different film.
Do you know who would have been quite good to do it? The team behind Succession.
Yeah. I think
there is an element of that in there, and I think if they got the scriptwriter, I've forgotten the showrunner on it. I think that would have been quite an interesting take.
They could have done a completely saccharine and rose-coloured version by getting the West Wing team in, because Sorkin worked with them really, really well, and they've proven that they've got scale and pace, because the West Wing as a TV show is fantastic, absolutely brilliant, if you can put up with that overly sugary taste to everything that goes along with it. But I don't know who else I'd put in there.
No. It's a team or Armando Iannucci.
Yeah, but then it would go proper political, wouldn't it? It would have some silly English humour in it that would go way over. And don't forget that this was quite a financial hit for the studio. This budget was 40 million, which is incredibly low when you think about the subject matter and how it looked at the end. And 224 million return. So it was a significant hit. So they weren't going to take any chances with it. But no. I think it's one of Fincher's films where it would have been interesting to see somebody else's take. You can't imagine somebody else doing Seven or Fight Club or even Benjamin Button. I don't think anybody would want to make Benjamin Button, although Steven Spielberg was attached at one.
Yeah, I was going to say Spielberg. You could give, but do you think? You're saying safe pair of hands. Do you think Fincher has now proved himself enough within Hollywood that studios can go, yeah, you can crack on with this?
I honestly don't think Fincher will ever have proven himself enough to be a safe pair of hands for Hollywood. For streaming platforms, yes, that's a completely different story, because nobody understands the finances there. But for Hollywood, where it is $1 in, you're praying for $1 out. Yeah, I think he is still too much of a anarchist is the wrong word, but he's still too much of a free spirit
Yeah.
to toe a studio line. I guarantee he signed the deal with Netflix with complete artistic control at the top of the contract, which very few studios will give any director, because he always wants to go one step further with the story, with one step further with one character or one scene or one emotion, and that doesn't always translate to box office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say streaming. Obviously, he's got the Netflix deal, but do you know where I see this film sitting?
Not on top of a Christmas tree.
Nope.
Go on.
This is an Apple TV Plus movie.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that
This
whole
is their
feel
territory.
and vibe about it. Yeah, it's definitely Apple territory. And with the amount of Apple products on display in the film, I'm not surprised. He does have a pawn shop from I think it's around about this film for just smothering Apple products everywhere. Go with the Dragon Tattoo is like,
Yeah.
it's like an advert. It's like, it's like 2 hours of, hey, we're in the snow. Do we have an Apple product for that? Yes, we do. We have eye boots. And even when he goes into House of Cards, which obviously we're not covering because it's TV, but House of Cards is like just bloody Apple stuff everywhere.
Sidebar on this is that if I've been certain programs I've been watching on streaming, I've sat there and I've thought, I reckon the original bidders for this, or the original target studio for this, was Apple.
Yeah.
If you look at something like Only Murders in the Building,
Yeah.
everything is Apple and showcased Apple. Even the display of their podcast is exactly how you would see it on an iDevice.
Yeah.
And watching Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Prime at the moment,
which I've given up on.
You've given up on.
Given up on it. Yeah.
We'll move that. I'm still quite enjoying it.
Yeah.
But their iDevices the whole time, front and center, watch them using them on screen.
Yeah.
The moment something bad happens is they've just gone and picked up an Android phone.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
They actually said she's gone and got an Android, and you're like, whoa.
If you think about how much that marketing is worth to Apple, it's free money to them. There was a, and I don't know how true this is. Succession was used as an example. That if you watch Succession, you can tell who's going to be the bad person because Apple don't let bad guys use their iPhones.
Yes,
so if you're watching a scene and somebody's using an Android device, then you go, he did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all the cowboys and the white hats are using iPhones.
Oh, they're all. I mean, Idris Elba in Hijack, which I thought was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that.
Yeah, totally.
But the Beats product placement in
God.
that. Jesus.
But that was an Apple TV show, and you can.
It was an Apple TV show.
Yeah,
but you were just missing big neon arrows going buy Beats headphones.
It was like we said all along. We will not kowtow to crass product placement at any time in our careers.
Absolutely not. I really, really do not want to bow down.
Even if I have a really bad headache, I will not kowtow to product placement, which tells me that my headache can be relieved much faster by using a particular product. That joke never gets old, does it? Yeah, so I agree with you. This is an Apple TV film, and Fincher is now very well ensconced into the streaming world. He's not done a theatrical film since The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Unless somebody, I'm pretty sure of that. Pretty sure.
I think
no, Gone Girl. Oh, I do beg your pardon.
Oh goodness, I'd forgot. Yes,
yeah, Gone Girl was his last theatrical film. Mank might have got a couple of days.
I think that got a limited release.
Yeah,
and
that doesn't count. Already. That does not count. No.
Oh, it's happening so much at the moment, though.
Of course, it's
Napoleon. All there because if it gets in the cinema, you can rate it for an Oscar.
Yes, yeah, and you might get some visible money back Whereas when it's made for a streamer, you sell it for a flat rate, and that's it. Because nobody
You
watches
sell it for a frat rate.
a flat rate, yeah. Really, yeah. So
Philip was a podcaster who corpsed one day.
I'll release the first 3 minutes of this recording if you're not careful. So yeah, his whole dynamic has changed now. You know, he's gone streaming all the way. House of Cards, Robots, Love and Death, Mindhunter, Mank.
Oh my goodness! Totally
The
forgot
Killer.
about this in the death. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's personally a loss to Hollywood and to theatrical releases, because I always find his films best to watch in a cinema in the first instance.
Yeah, but I think it's where we are now, post COVID.
Of course it is. Well, it's the new model, isn't it? You know, you can tell by. I remember when I first started going to the cinema, there was no age jokes. Throw them at me now. There was no VHS, home release at that point until I was like 16, something like that. So up until that point, you'd go and see a film in the cinema and you'd wait for it to come on the telly, and that could be anything like 2, 3, 4 years before it came on the telly. Yeah, but now we're at the point where we're releasing. You're laughing. Explain the joke.
No, just thinking how old you are.
Bloody ancient, mate. But now we're at the
But
point.
you're justified.
Yeah. Oh God. And I drive her. We're now at a point now where films are being released in the cinema, full theatrical runs, doing 4 weeks in the cinema, then going to digital. And you just like to yourself, what? We're actually at the point now where films are being thrown away. You know, the new Batgirl film with Brendan Gleeson in it.
Yeah, there are elements of that which are financial, which is it's easier to shelve it as a tax write-off.
Which is awful.
But no, it's been happening for years, for many years. I, in a previous job, that's all I say, just in a previous job. But people would invest in films that they knew were going to tank and be a flop or straight to VHS, DVD, because it was cheaper to do that than pay tax.
Wow.
So they were tax write-offs. So there were these production companies that would invest in small little films.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Once in a while, they actually made it good and became really big films.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha! Those who are trying to evade tax. But it's not a new thing to do a film and shelve it as a tax write-off.
Does that explain the last 7 Marvel films then?
I couldn't comment, Your Honour.
They're bad. They're boring. God, who seriously?
We could do a whole other podcast about Marvel why, because there's
we've already done an episode called You, Kevin Feige. Yeah,
I think we could have another rant-isode.
It's Marvel. The Marvel model, which has now become the Disney model, has destroyed theatre or cinema rather.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely destroyed it, and it's destroyed the quality of serialized TV as well. I don't know. So we're both in agreement. It's a great film. Yeah, I think you enjoyed it more than I did because I think you were more in the moment and more involved than I was. I was pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did. Next week we're doing The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, not the Dragon Tattoo.
The Girl with the Tattoo Dragon.
Yeah, the girl with the tattoo somewhere on her body of a dragon somewhere. which is one of my personal favourites. We'll talk about that next week. So it just remains to say thank you for watching and listening. I have been the successful multinational social media platform, Facebook. Opposite me has been MySpace. Thank you and good night.
Poke.
Poke. Is that what they did on MySpace?
No, Facebook.
Was it?
Yeah, you used to be able to poke people. Do you not remember? They brought it back.
How rude.
They've brought it back. You can now poke people, not in that way, and speak to your lawyers.
How rude.
Poke.
Well,
you can poke people.
I'm off
if they're ignoring you, you can poke them.
I'm off to go and poke my wife then.
I'm going to go and poke myself.